Welcome back, everybody. We're celebrating National Weatherperson's Day today, a day to recognize all the people who keep us informed about the weather. And let's be honest, who hasn't been glued to the forecast when a big storm's coming?
Right.
Well,
Something that affects us all. And you know what's interesting is that this day actually commemorates the birth of John Jeffries. Way back in 1744, he was a doctor, but also a pioneer in weather observation here in America.
so John Jeffries, okay, I know that he was very meticulous in keeping weather records,
Yeah.
but what makes him so important in the history of meteorology?
Well, think about it. This is the 1700s, long before all of our modern technology. Jeffries was making these detailed observations in Boston. And get this, he even took weather instruments up in a hot air balloon over London. Talk about dedication.
Wow, a hot air balloon, that's incredible. He really was a pioneer.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think how far we've come since then.
Yeah. From those early observations to the sophisticated forecasting models that we have today, it's been quite the journey. And speaking of modern meteorology, I think most people, when they think of a meteorologist, they think of the TV weathercaster. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, there's a whole world of weather experts behind the scenes. And I've heard that the National Weather Service is actually a major employer of meteorologists.
Oh, absolutely. The NWS is like the backbone of weather forecasting here in the U.S. They're the ones responsible for issuing those severe weather warnings that help protect life and property.
Yeah.
And it's a huge operation. There are over 300, 600 meteorologists working across 122 local offices nationwide.
Wow, 122 offices. That's incredible. So it's not just about, predicting if we need an umbrella.
Yeah,
Their work has real consequences.
exactly. I mean, think about the impact of a hurricane or a
Yeah.
tornado. The National Weather Service provides that critical information that helps communities prepare and respond to these events.
It's a huge responsibility. And it's 24/7, right? Weather doesn't take a break for holidays or anything.
Yep. You got it. The
Mm.
NWS operates around the clock 365 days a year. They have teams in those local offices we talked about. They have regional headquarters and even specialized national centers, all working together to monitor weather patterns and issue forecasts and warnings.
Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into these national centers, because I'm kind of curious about what each one does. I know there's the Storm Prediction Center, which I think focuses on tornadoes.
Yeah, you're right on the mark. The Storm Prediction Center is in Oklahoma, and they're really the nerve center for tornado and severe thunderstorm forecasting. They issue those watches and warnings that give people time to take cover.
That's so important,
Right.
especially for people living in tornado-prone areas.
Yeah.
And what about hurricanes? Isn't there a center dedicated to tracking those as well?
Absolutely. The National Hurricane Center down in Miami is responsible for tracking and forecasting those powerful storms. They use sophisticated models and data from hurricane hunters to try to predict the path and the intensity of a hurricane.
So we've got tornadoes, we've got hurricanes. What other specialized centers are there within the NWS?
Well, there's the Aviation Weather Center, which focuses on providing forecasts for pilots and the aviation industry. There's the Climate Prediction Center, which looks at long-range climate trends and issues seasonal outlooks. And of course, we can't forget the Hydrometeorological Prediction Center, which focuses on heavy rainfall, flooding, and winter weather. So each center really plays a critical role in keeping the nation informed and prepared for a wide range of weather events.
It's truly an interconnected system. It's like a well-oiled machine with all these different parts working together.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
It really is. And one more thing to think about. The NWS is constantly pushing the boundaries
Mhm.
of our understanding of weather. They have these research laboratories, like the National Severe Storms Laboratory, that are dedicated to improving forecasting techniques and developing new technologies.
So it's not just about issuing forecasts. It's about pushing the science forward and
Yeah.
finding new ways to keep people safe. I'm starting to realize that a career in meteorology is a lot more diverse than I initially thought.
You're absolutely right. And that actually brings us to an interesting point. While the NWS is a major player, it's not the only place you'll find meteorologists.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many other places.
So if we're looking beyond the National Weather Service then, where else are meteorologists needed?
Well, the military comes to mind right away. The Air Force and the Navy especially rely very heavily on meteorologists.
Yeah, that makes sense. Planning missions, keeping troops safe. It all depends on knowing what the weather's going to do, whether you're here in the U.S. or overseas.
Precisely. And then there's also this huge growth that we're seeing in the private sector, any industry that's affected by the weather, which, let's be honest, is almost every industry. They need people who can analyze the risk and make smart decisions based on forecasts.
So can you give us some specific examples? What kind of jobs are we talking about here? Well, you've got hospitals that need to prepare for a hurricane, Or insurance companies that need to assess damage after a big hailstorm. Construction companies need to know about wind loads on buildings they're constructing. Even lawyers sometimes need expert testimony in court cases when the weather's a factor.
Wow, I never even considered the legal aspect of it. So for anyone listening who might be thinking about a career in meteorology, it sounds like the possibilities are really diverse.
Absolutely. But it's also important to think about the people behind the forecasts.
Yeah.
And look at the demographics of the meteorology field as well.
Okay, so what can you tell us about that? Are there any trends or statistics that stand out to you?
Well, if we go back to those TV meteorologists that we were talking about earlier, it might surprise you to know that only about 24% of them are women.
That is kind of surprising. It seems like a field that would appeal to anyone, regardless of their gender.
You would think so. And it was even lower back in 2011, only around 17.6%. So things are moving in the right direction, but there's definitely still a long way to go.
Absolutely. What about racial diversity within the field?
It's a similar story there. The majority of broadcast meteorologists are white, around 76%, but we are seeing a gradual increase in representation from other racial groups as well, Black or African American meteorologists in particular.
So while there's still work to be done to make the field truly representative of the population, it is encouraging to see that at least some progress is being made.
Definitely. And here's another interesting fact. The average age of a broadcast meteorologist is nearly 50 years old. So that kind of suggests that it takes time to really build up that expertise in the field.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dealing with something as complex as the weather probably requires a lot of experience. So let's talk about how someone even gets into this field. What's the education path look like for an aspiring meteorologist?
Well, the foundation is really a 4-year bachelor's degree in meteorology or atmospheric science. It's pretty much standard. Almost all meteorologists have at least that level of education.
Okay, so that's the starting point. But what about people who want to specialize or maybe go into research?
That's where the more advanced degrees come in. Master's degrees and PhDs are becoming increasingly common, especially for those who are interested in things like climate modeling or severe weather research.
Makes sense. More education often leads to more specialized roles and probably higher paying roles as well. Speaking of which, what kind of salary can someone expect in the meteorology field?
Well, the average salary for atmospheric and space scientists, which includes all those different types of meteorologists we've been talking about, is around $101,530 per year.
Okay, not bad. But I imagine there's a lot of variation depending on experience, location, and the specific job.
You're exactly right. The top 10% in the field can earn over $157,250 annually. And of course, things like working in a major city or for a private company versus a government agency. All those things can influence your earning potential.
So it sounds like there's a lot of room for growth and advancement. Yeah. And it's not just about the money either. There's that satisfaction of, contributing to public safety, understanding our atmosphere, and maybe even becoming a familiar face on the evening news.
Exactly. There's a certain thrill that comes with being a meteorologist, knowing that your work has this direct impact on people's lives. It's a field that combines science, technology, and communication. And there's a lot of opportunity out there for folks who are really passionate about weather.
I think a lot of our listeners today are probably realizing that there's a lot more to meteorology than they initially thought.
Definitely. And even within a specific job, like let's say working at the National Hurricane Center, there are still so many different roles and specializations.
That's a great point. So what does that journey look like? How does someone actually end up working at a place like the National Hurricane Center?
Well, it often starts with a spark of interest. Maybe as a kid you were fascinated by storms.
Yeah.
Or always checking the weather forecast.
So you have that initial interest. And then what?
Well, that interest usually translates into a focus on, math and science in school. And then by the time you're in college, you're taking those core meteorology courses, calculus physics, all that good stuff.
So a solid academic foundation is key. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, a lot of aspiring meteorologists also seek out internships or research opportunities while they're still in school. That kind of hands-on experience is really invaluable.
I bet those internships are pretty competitive.
Oh, they can be, for sure. But, the people who really thrive in this field are those who are driven by a genuine desire to learn and contribute. They're really passionate about weather and using that knowledge to make a difference.
So you've got the education, you've got the experience, and you've got the passion. What's next?
Well, then the job hunt begins. And as we've discussed, the NWS is obviously a major employer. but it's not the only option.
Right. We talked about the military, the private sector research labs, all these different avenues to explore.
Exactly. So let's say you do land that dream job at the
Mhm.
National Hurricane Center. What kind of work might you actually be doing?
Yeah. Give us a glimpse into the day-to-day life of a hurricane hunter.
Well, first of all, it's important to know that not everyone at the Hurricane Center is flying into storms. There are all these other specialists who are focusing on different aspects of hurricane forecasting.
So what are some of those specialized roles then?
Well, you've got people analyzing satellite data, you've got people running those complex computer models, and then you have others who are focusing on communicating those forecasts to the public and to emergency management officials.
So it really is a team effort,
Yeah.
just like the National Weather Service as a whole.
Exactly. And during hurricane season, things can get really intense. You're working long hours under pressure, constantly monitoring that latest data, and making decisions that could really affect millions of lives.
I can only imagine. It must be incredibly demanding, but also very rewarding to know you're playing such a crucial role.
It is. There's definitely an adrenaline rush that comes with it, tracking those powerful storms and knowing that your work is helping keep people safe.
I bet. And on that note, let's talk a little bit more about the communication aspect of meteorology. Because it's not just about the science, it's about getting that information out to the people who need it.
You're absolutely right. Effective communication is so crucial, especially when we're talking about, hazardous weather. And this is where those TV weathercasters we mentioned earlier really play an important role. They're often the face of meteorology for the general public.
For sure. They're the ones explaining those complex weather patterns
Yeah.
in a way that everyone can understand. And they're also the ones relaying those life-saving warnings from the National Weather Service.
Exactly. And it takes a special set of skills to be able to do that effectively. You have to be able to break down complex information, be comfortable on camera, and connect with your audience in a way that builds trust.
Definitely. And we can't forget about social media these days. A lot of meteorologists are using platforms like Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok to share weather information and engage with the public.
That's a great point. Social media has totally revolutionized the way we communicate about weather. It allows meteorologists to reach a much wider audience, share information quickly, and even, dispel rumors and misinformation.
Speaking of misinformation, it seems like we're constantly bombarded with conflicting weather information these days, especially online. So how can our listeners sort through all that noise and figure out who to trust?
That's such an important question, especially in our information-saturated world. Here's a pro tip. Look for sources that are credible, transparent, and backed by scientific evidence.
So the National Weather Service, reputable news organization, meteorologists who are clearly communicating their credentials and expertise.
Exactly. And be wary of sources that are making, sensationalized claims, relying on clickbait headlines, or just lacking that scientific rigor.
It's all about critical thinking and media literacy. But, even with the best information, weather can be pretty unpredictable. Even the most sophisticated models can't always get it 100% right.
That's true. Weather forecasting is a complex science, and there's always going to be some degree of uncertainty involved. But, that's part of what makes it so fascinating. We're constantly learning and improving. And even with those limitations, we've made some incredible strides in our ability to predict and understand weather patterns.
And those advancements have undoubtedly saved countless lives. It's
Yeah.
pretty remarkable when you think about it.
It really is. And speaking of remarkable, we can't forget about all those incredible volunteer weather observers that we have across the country. These folks are out there contributing valuable data to the NWS, which helps improve forecasts and warnings.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the unsung heroes of meteorology,
Yeah.
often putting themselves in harm's way to provide that critical information during severe weather events.
Right. They're the storm spotters, the skywarn volunteers, the people taking daily measurements of rainfall and temperature. They're a vital part of this whole weather enterprise.
And what's really cool is that anyone can get involved
Yeah.
with these citizen science projects, like COCOR HS, which is the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network.
Exactly. It's a great way to contribute to scientific research and learn more about weather and climate. You might even discover a passion for meteorology that you never knew you had.
That's the beauty of science, right?
Right.
It's for everyone, and there's always something new to learn. Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the future of meteorology. What are some of the trends and challenges on the horizon?
Well, one of the most exciting areas of advancement is in computer modeling. As technology continues to evolve, we can create these more and more sophisticated models that can simulate weather
Yeah.
patterns with incredible accuracy.
So better forecasts, more lead time for warnings, and a deeper understanding of how weather systems work.
Precisely. And with this increasing amount of data that we're getting from satellites, radar surface observations, we have a much more comprehensive view of the atmosphere than we ever have
Hmm.
before.
It's amazing. It sounds like we're really on the cusp of some major breakthroughs in forecasting. But it's not just about the technology, is it? There's also this growing focus on understanding the human impact of weather and climate change.
That's a crucial point. Meteorologists are playing this increasingly important role in helping communities prepare for and mitigate the effects of climate change. Everything from sea level rise to more extreme weather events.
So it's not just about predicting the weather anymore. It's about helping people adapt and thrive in a changing world.
Exactly, and that requires collaboration across disciplines, from social scientists to engineers to policymakers. It's truly an interdisciplinary field.
It sounds like the future of meteorology is full of possibilities. But before we look too far ahead, let's bring it back to National Weatherperson's Day.
Great idea. It's a day to celebrate the hard work and dedication of everyone who contributes to our understanding of weather. From those researchers who are pushing the boundaries of science, to those broadcasters who are communicating those forecasts right to our living rooms.
Absolutely. And on that note, we want to give a special shout out to all the amazing meteorologists out there, especially those who are working tirelessly behind the scenes at the National Weather Service. Your work truly makes a difference.
Couldn't agree more. And to all those aspiring meteorologists out there, the future is bright. The field needs you. We need those passionate individuals who are ready to tackle the challenges and embrace all those opportunities that lie ahead.
It's amazing to think about how far we've come, from those early observations with people like John Jeffries to these incredibly complex forecasting systems that we have today. It really highlights the importance of science and technology in our lives.
Absolutely. And the role of those dedicated individuals who make it all happen.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are constantly pushing the boundaries,
Yeah.
improving our understanding, and ultimately helping to keep us safe.
So speaking of dedicated individuals, we've talked about all these different career paths within meteorology, from the National Weather Service to the private sector and research. But for anyone listening who's maybe feeling inspired and thinking about a career in this field, what advice would you give them?
Well, first and foremost, I would say nurture that curiosity. Read books, watch documentaries, explore online resources, maybe even set up a simple weather station in your backyard.
Oh, that's a great idea. Get some hands-on experience learned by doing.
Exactly. And as you start, progressing through school, make sure you focus on those STEM subjects,
Yeah.
science, technology, engineering, and math. Those are really the building blocks for any career in meteorology.
Right, because at its core,
Yeah.
meteorology is a science. So a strong foundation in those subjects is crucial.
Absolutely. And, don't be afraid to reach out to working meteorologists. Network, ask questions, seek out mentors. Most people in this field are so passionate about their work, and they're usually more than happy to share their knowledge and experience.
I love that. Finding a mentor can make such a difference, especially in a field like meteorology. Now, we can't wrap up this National Weatherperson's Day celebration without acknowledging those unsung heroes, the volunteer weather observers.
Oh, you're so right. They are out there in all kinds of conditions, collecting that valuable data that helps improve those forecasts and warnings.
Yeah.
The storm spotters, the sky-warn volunteers, the citizen scientists who contribute so much to our understanding of weather.
And what's really cool
Yeah.
is that anyone can get involved. Citizen science projects like Kokore Fish, the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network are a fantastic way for people to contribute to real scientific research.
Exactly. You don't need a fancy degree to make a difference, just a passion for weather and a willingness to learn.
I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners. Meteorology is a field that's accessible to everyone. Whether you're pursuing it as a career or you just have a casual interest in the weather, there's always something new to discover. There are always ways to get involved.
Couldn't agree more. So the next time you check that forecast, take a moment to appreciate all the incredible work that goes into it. From those early pioneers like John Jeffries to all the modern-day meteorologists and volunteers who are dedicated to understanding and predicting our ever-changing atmosphere.
Well said. And to wrap things up, we want to encourage all of our weather enthusiasts out there to follow meteorologist Rob Jones. You can find him on Instagram at meteorologist, on TikTok at TV Meteorologist, And on YouTube, just search for Rob Jones Hurricane. He's got some great content. And you can also find the Meteorology Matters podcast playlist there as well.
And one final thought to leave you with. Every time you step outside and you feel the wind on your face, or you marvel at that stunning sunset, remember that you are experiencing the awe-inspiring power of our atmosphere. Take a moment to appreciate the science behind it all, and maybe even consider how you might contribute to our understanding of this incredible planet we call home.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this special Meteorology Matters episode in celebration of National Weatherperson's Day. We'll catch you next time.